Hello, welcome to our fourth session in Collaboration in a Pandemic. I want to welcome everybody tonight. Hopefully we'll have a few more that are jumping in and joining us. And I wanted to take just a minute. Go ahead, Lauren. Lauren is sharing her screen for us. So I wanted to introduce us in case you don't know us. I'm Angie White. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology with the Oldham County. And we have Rosalind Manning, one of our digital learning coaches, and Lauren Rata, our other digital learning coach. And they're going to share some really cool things with you tonight. I do want to go through a little bit of our housekeeping. We ask that you keep your mic muted just to keep background noise and feedback from becoming an issue. And then if you've got questions, you can just put those in the chat, and I monitor the chat while Rosalind and Lauren are going through the different tools, and we try to answer those questions along, and we have time at the end if we don't get those questions as we're moving through the presentation tonight. And then we have the agenda, and if somebody can throw that into the chat, we end up throwing that in several times. You might want to pin that so that you don't lose it as we go through because they have lots of really good resources for you to look at later. We will be recording this and sharing that out with you all after we get finished tonight. I'll start working on that and we'll get that sent out to you along with the slide deck again. Just so you can stop, rewind, pause, whatever it is that you need to do. And then I'm not going to take time this time, but in that slide deck, if you want to look at underneath the audio video portion, it says Google Meet Expectations Guide, and it's just an example of ways that you can help manage your Google Meet with your students. So once again, if you're new, this is your first time, you might say, why in the world did you all decide to do a session on collaboration when we're in a pandemic? And 2 decades ago, or over 2 decades ago, Anderson and Garrison demonstrated that success in an online classroom depended on the relationship between the student and the content, secondly, the student and the instructor, and then thirdly, the student and the classmates. So when students aren't collaborating with classmates, they miss out on new perspectives and new ideas, new approaches to solve problems, and they miss out on the opportunity to develop those critical soft skills like communication and problem solving and creative thinking. So I'm going to turn it over now to Lauren.
Yes, and I'm actually going to come on in here. I wanted to keep my face there so you could see me, but I'm now going to go ahead and turn my camera off to be able to focus here on the presentation. So before we get started with our very first tool today, whether this is your first time or your fourth time, welcome back or thank you for coming tonight. Just so you know how this is organized in our slide deck, we've had 4 sessions now. We're on the 4th, and it's organized, as you can see, with each session we have our tools. We dive deep into the first tools, and we spend about 20 minutes on those and model those and talk to you about how you can use these with your students to collaborate. And then the third tool is that digital dessert. And so although we have a ton of resources here within these tools, we're just going to briefly talk about them. And that's meant for you to take kind of with you to go, like a dessert might be when you're really full from a big meal, for you to kind of enjoy at a later time. How this also is organized is each of these are like little buttons. And if you click on them, so for an example, we're on session 4 tonight, and I'm going to click on our Flipgrid Grid Pals here in a second. It will take you directly to that slide. And so that's really helpful so that you can quickly have that overview of what that tool is and how to get started. And then the slide after that allows you to dig a little bit deeper into that collaboration tool. And then you can always get back to the menu over here in the bottom left corner to take you back to explore those tools. And so that is kind of how our slide deck is organized. From this point tonight, you have access to all of these tools now that we are presenting on all of them. And so we hope that you enjoyed this tonight, but as well as dig back deeper into it in the future as well. And so let's go ahead and let's get started with Flipgrid Grid Pals. So you might be wondering, well, what are grid pals? A lot of us have heard of Flipgrid. It's been around for a few years. And even though it has been, I love Flipgrid. And innovates and gets better, I feel like, each and every day. They come out with new functions and features to help support students and teachers as well. But Grid Pals is an idea that was actually created from educators as well, who saw that need to connect their classrooms to others around the world. One of the most famous of this group of educators is called Bonnie McClelland, and she even has an educator guide that I'll share with you here in a minute. And they used Flipgrid kind of as the platform and the feature of having a co-pilot, which you can think of that as like adding a co-teacher, if you're familiar with Google Classroom, to your Flipgrid, to kind of collaboratively manage grids and topics with other fellow educators. And then also Flipgrid does support this idea as well. And you can easily access or activate this in the profile section and enable it. Flipgrid Grid Pals is a great way for students to collaborate with each other on either like a local level. So you could do Grid Pals with, yes, a classroom in your own school, or even a classroom across the district, but still possibly elementary or middle school or high school. Or you could use it on a little bit larger level around Kentucky, as well as, like I said, globally around the world. So we'll take a look at here in a minute how you could connect with other educators and get started doing that. Also, something I like about it is, yes, it connects people within any grade level, but also any content area as well. So this can be used pre-K through 12. It can be used with math, with science, with foreign language, and the possibilities are just endless. If you are not familiar with Flipgrid, because we're kind of going to take it beyond Flipgrid today, Rosalind has some awesome videos here because she has been an expert and presented a lot on Flipgrid this year, as well as Flipgrid has also some guides here. So if you just need to get started, please check these links out. It will take you from the very beginning of how do I even start a Flipgrid, how can my students get started, and then how can I start creating topics, looking at a little bit of feedback and student work as well. But we are going to focus on tonight how this can be used as that collaboration tool. So let me start from the beginning. Yes, there's a video here, but I want to show you in real time. So in just a second, I'm going to present the slides so that you can see how to do this from the level of Flipgrid. And so I'm going to pretend like you are already on Flipgrid. You already have that educator account. So what's next? How can I get connected with other educators and get my students collaborating with other students around the world with those Grid Pals? So the first thing is you have to be on Flipgrid, but you also have to be in your educator login. Remember, a great thing about Flipgrid is you can use your Google login, your single sign-on, your first name, last name at oldham.kyschools.us to log in. And then once you're here in your teacher dashboard, you will notice up here at the top, you may have not seen it before, or maybe you're just thinking, what was that? It's called Grid Pals up here. And so when you click on it, as you can see right now, I'm hidden. So you have two choices. Automatically, by default, everyone is hidden, and you have to activate your Grid Pals account to be able to, like it says, find other educators in classrooms around the world. And so I'm going to click on this so that you can see, and it's going to prompt me because at one point I had a profile because I did connect with other educators. The first important thing is if you want to upload a photo, you can, or you can just leave it the emoji. It's really important that you think about your community bio. And so this is what educators who are looking for someone to connect with read to see if you might be a good match for them. And so as you can see here, for me, it was that I'm a digital learning coach and I'm trying to find contacts for teachers and students, variety of classrooms. I was kind of wide open, pre-K through 12. And so, let me know if you have an instructional connection. For you, you might want to focus on if it's a specific unit. You could just say specifically, I'm looking for, someone in France with that has background in culture. So you can be really specific or you can be kind of broad, but make sure that you explain what your background is and also what type of students they would be also wanting to connect with there. You can put in your grades. So as you can see, I put multiple. I put anywhere from pre-K all the way up to high school. And you can do that by coming here and you can select multiple. Also, I like to point out like a librarian. You can even check that off as well. And then the next one, it's important that if you want to specify by subject, you can also do that here. I said all because I was looking for any connections. And then also you need to put in your location. So I'm going to just put Oldham County, Kentucky. You can be specific if you want it for yours, but this is how people will find you. And you can say next. And then from here, it's important you toggle this on, that email invites. And so I want people to connect with me, other educators, through my email. And it says your email is never shared until you reply. So they don't know what my email is. They're just using Flipgrid as that dashboard to communicate with me, and it's private. And then once I email them back, that's when it lets them, that educator, see my email address. So you don't have to worry about them soliciting your email out there for the world to see. And then I did put my Twitter, but I only put my Twitter on here because it is strictly professional. And so if you are using any of these social media sites for professional work, so to connect and collaborate with other educators or to promote something in your classroom, then I do recommend you putting that on here. For an example, I use my Facebook just for personal, to connect with my family and to share what's going on with friends. And so I would not put my Facebook username there because that is not appropriate, not applicable. And then once you're done, you can say, and you don't have to put any social media on here if you don't want to as well. That is completely optional. And you can say, become a Grid Pal, and it will activate that. And as you can see, it swiped it on now. So I am now actively looking and accepting those Grid Pal connections from teachers and educators. And so now you might be thinking, okay, great. I've got my account. It's active. What next? How do I connect and find people? Right here below. So I'm still in that same Grid Pals column there, or tab, whatever you want to call it. You can, if you want to, as you can see, look at all these people who are active around here. I'm going to zoom out because it's even hard for me to see. So there are a ton of educators, as you can see, all around us that I could choose from. But what's nice is this filtering here. So let's say specifically, maybe one of my coaching cycles in elementary want a connection. I can also take it down to subjects if I want. Let's say maybe they're looking for something in maybe history and social studies. So I can take it down even further. And now, as you can see, at all of these, I can hover over and find one that's a good fit. So maybe if I wanted something in Kentucky, I can hover over it and I can see that Miss Doolin, she is also wanting to connect with an elementary age classroom. Also, she's interested in science, history, and social studies. She didn't have a large profile like I did. She didn't type as much, and that's okay. But as you can see here, it doesn't tell me her email address. I can send an invite, and as you can see, all I do is click here, and it will let her know that I'm ready to connect with her, and then she can choose whether to email me back or not. And I'm not going to click that right now. So that is one way you can do it from the map right there as well. But also, don't forget, so that is kind of more of a local level here. But I could also connect with someone globally. So look, if I come out on the map, I still have it filtered. Look over here. I have a ton of people that I could connect with. Oh, let's see, right over in here. So if I click here, yeah, there we go. There's Carmen. And as you can see, oh, she's only letting me connect with her via Instagram, it looks like. So that might not be a good match for me because I want to just email people. So you can kind of click around until you find people as well that look like a good match for you and use these filters. Pretty neat. So that is kind of how, and as you can see, you can come down here and you can click even more if you want to and find out even more information about them. So that is Flipgrid and Flipgrid Pals. That's how you go ahead and you activate or make your account active, and also you search and find for people. Pretty neat. So that is how you get started. Something else I want to showcase here on this slide is also this getting started guide. And because I feel like it's also helpful and supportive, because there's a few things that I did want to mention about Grid Pals. Although it's an awesome thing, it's also though still important that we include our parents and get their permission as well if we're going to connect outside our classrooms. And so within this Flipgrid guide, so if you are someone who likes to kind of look at images, this might be a better fit for you than the video. And it'll walk you through logging in. It'll walk you through those same steps of making your account active and toggling it on, updating your account. But something I wanted to share with you is down here, this sample permission form. One thing that I want to mention, and this is one actually from the high school, when I co-taught with a teacher here a few years ago that used this as well within her classroom. This is just a sample letter of what this might look like for you to send to parents. And I know we could also collect this via Google form if we need to as well. If we don't have our students in person, you could do that as well. But I really like this as a guide to kind of show you what she did. she first, explained what Flipgrid is and how it's that teacher facilitated platform. She needs parent permission. She lets parents know that Flipgrid does not collect personal information. It's safe because they're entering that flip code in the district email, so it's locked down. Grids are moderated, so it kind of eases the parents' anxiety if they were worried about their students connecting and collaborating with other students around the world, just keeping their first name only to protect identity and everything. Also, it lets them know if you want to go to the website, feel free. Also, she even added in the school's website of who they were communicating with in Spain. And also, feel free to reach out to me. So although it's a simple permission form, I do feel like it's detailed and it explains the parents the purpose of why they're doing this and how it's going to impact their students' education. And so I just wanted to share that as well. Also within our slide deck, we have some other resources. I do want to also showcase Bonnie McClellan's guide. She was one of those first educators who kind of had this awesome idea. And really, and I like how she explains it. She explains it like, do you remember when you were a kid and you had those pen pals in class with a neighboring school or someone around the world, and you got that pen out and that paper and you wrote to them and how exciting it was? This is that same feeling, but with our digital world. And so we even found that when we were posting, even at that high school level, the kids were so excited to see when those other students replied back to them. They were kind of hesitant to show how excited, but you could see the look on their faces when they got to school that day and they got to see what those students said back to them. So that was really awesome to see. And we also knew because the teacher was the moderator, so we didn't accept the other students' responses for them to see until we were ready for them. But this guide is pretty awesome that she's put together as well. So check this out as well. She's got it set up to where it's got this great table of contents that quickly takes you to all these ideas on how to get started. But then I also wanted to showcase from page 25 on, she's got some great ideas on topics. So you might be also thinking, okay, great. Once I connect with this other classroom, what do we talk about? And so she's got some great ideas here of how you can go ahead and get your students to get to know each other. Some cool things like a school tour to kind of let them see what the building looks like, talk to them about what they're learning, different conversations, book talks. Here's specifically on collaboration, how they could collaborate. And as you can see, even more topics. So check these out for younger students, for older students, for ELLs. So she has put together this awesome guide that I think you would like to possibly explore later if you're interested in GridPals. Something else I also want to talk to you all about, this Helpful Tips for Use site by MTech. I really enjoyed this because they also brought up some good teaching points or thinking about as you get started. It walks you through everything as well. But the 3 tips that she communicated, which I kind of hit on the first one, that I think it's important for us to look at are first, communicating with your students and parents and complying with any parent and guardian requests if they don't want to participate. So first, think about getting that parent permission for GridPals. Is that okay for their child to participate? The next is talking to your students. It's a great time to talk about digital citizenship. How can they be safe and ethical online with their technology use? As well as, I like to call it that digital etiquette, or it's called netiquette sometimes. Also, we probably need to do a few mini lessons on how do we have those conversations online, or first we can talk about offline to then also take them online. What is acceptable, to respond to classmates? Are there sentence stems we can give our students to help them to respectfully agree or disagree? So think about all those things also if you decide to get started with GridPals. And all of these are links to take you elsewhere to also give you more ideas on how to have those conversations or teach digital citizenship, or other examples also of some of those guides. And then also I want to show you a specific example. And so I was very fortunate to work with Beth Childress at South Oldham High School. And it was my first experience with GridPals with her. So we went in together and we decided this would be a great opportunity for her foreign language students, specifically in Spanish, to use this and connect with another country around the world to help practice their oral speaking skills with Spanish, and also to get to know the culture. And so I would like to show you all here. This is, and I had her permission as well. And I also locked this down with a password. So you can also click on this Mixtape, but also know that they're Oldham PD and the O is capitalized and the PD is capitalized to be able to access this if you want to check it out yourself later. And so I wanted to show you all quickly a few examples of how this could be used. And so for an example, like I said, they connected with, she was able to get on there, connect with the teacher, that teacher emailed her back, and they were able to create, at the time, they were called grids. I know they're called groups now, and they created a grid together. So Miss Childress created it, and then she invited this other Spanish teacher as the co-pilot. So they were both moderators and controllers of the account. They both made sure their classrooms had that parent permission, and then they were able to go ahead and get started. Remember, also for students, it's as seamless to log in because they use that single sign-on with Google, so that was very helpful as well. And then they just gave them prompts. The first ones were very simple, and so if you check these out, these were just those introductions. And so for our students here at the high school, they had to use Spanish to communicate, and then opposite, the students from Spain had to use English. And so that was helpful for both of those sides of students to practice those oral language skills and to be listening. And so I would like to show you something a little bit further along. So after they got to know each other and did the basics, and then they started to use, like they were on prepositions this week. So this student, so he had a script, as you could see, so it helped him with the written language, as well as then he had to orally speak it. And so that was pretty neat. And then as they got down further, they got to go out in their communities and kind of share about what that kind of their culture and their community looked like. So here is Pablo. This is one from there. Oh, it's sideways. So as you could see, that was really neat for our students here to literally see that. And that child, I feel like, went to a perfect spot. He went all the way up onto a hill so that we could see his entire community or town there. And so that was really nice for his pen pal or his grid pal to see what that culture looked like. It's also helpful just to see, how do they dress? What do they speak? What do they, and there was a specific posting like what kids their age did there in their town. And so that was neat as well. And then our students went out into the community for homework and also went to the Starbucks there in Crestwood or the library or any of those little places, some of their favorite places. I think one child went to the stadium and shared from that South football field there, kind of that they like to go there and, play sports. And so it was just a really cool way to connect these students with others around the world. So just another, idea or tool for your toolbox for collaboration in a different way. And like I said, it could be more on a local level here in Kentucky or within our own district, but it could be at that global level as well. I'm going to unpresent my screen and see if we have any questions about Grid Pals at this point.
Lauren, I think you did a great job. There were no questions, but I saw some nods as you were going through.
Okay, great. I still see some nods. So hopefully you found this beneficial and you could see how your students, like I said, I don't know if any of you all had those pen pals as a kid. I remember one school year I did, I think it was a third grade. I did, and I loved getting that letter, that feeling that other students sent me and just getting out and reading it. And like I said, the high schoolers tried not to act too excited when they sat down that day in the desks, but I could tell they were excited to get on Flipgrid and to hear the response and then get to respond back. So that was really neat to see. Even some of those big boy football players were excited. All right. Well, thank you all. Please let me know also, though, if you want any support finding and getting connected with another educator through Grid Pals as well. I'd love to help.
All righty, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to present my screen now, if you'll give me just 1 second. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I am going to share with you a little bit about Pear Deck Flashcard Factory, and this is a tool that I think a lot of people know about Pear Deck. They use Pear Deck with their Google Slides to engage their students with their lessons, whether it's virtual or in person, maybe even a hybrid type combination. But Pear Deck Flashcard Factory is one of the first things that I used with Pear Deck, and it's something that a lot of people don't really know about. And it's available in the free version of Pear Deck, so you don't have to upgrade your account to have access to it. It's a really fun, interactive way for students to collaborate with their peers, and then also kind of compete against each other. And I used this in the classroom with its Flashcard Factory, so it made sense for me as an English teacher to be using this for vocabulary, but you could really use this with not just vocabulary, but concepts as a whole in your classes. And so I'm going to actually have y'all participate as students in a flashcard factory, just so you can kind of see what that looks like as a student. And then I'll go over with you how to set it up and how to access it and all of that. So I have actually already started a flashcard factory presentation, and you would join this, or your students would join this in the exact same way that they would join a regular Pear Deck lesson. So you're going to go to joinpd.com, and then it will give you a code. And what I love about Pear Deck is that it spells out, like with words, the code, in case you're like, is that an L or is that a 1? And you know it's an L because it says insincere bandanas loudly. So I know that that's an L. So I really love that about Pear Deck, that they break down that code for you. And you can see as people are joining, it says 3 workers joined, 4 workers joined. This is something that you can do virtually, like through a Google Meet, the same way we're doing it now, or you can do this in person with your kids as well. And so this is what's going to happen when I click this clock in button. It's going to break y'all into teams. So there will be a day shift team and a night shift team. And essentially what you're doing in this process is you will be given a word, and it will ask you to either draw an example of the word or to write a sentence with the word. And so that's kind of what that process is going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and clock in, and you'll notice that it gives me day shift groups and night shift groups. So you actually have a partner. And I've obviously got an odd number, but that's okay. So what's going to happen here, for example, in my night shift group here, Jamie might be the person who's going to be the drawer, and Lauren might be the person who is the sentence creator. If I wanted to, I could decide, like, maybe Jamie and Lauren really just don't work well together. They're goofy and whatever, and I want to mix them up. I can click this shuffle teams button, and it'll go ahead and it'll just put them in the exact same group, which is exactly what I wanted to happen. So I'm going to shuffle those teams again and see if I can get them out of the same group. So you can use that feature before you get started. I'm going to go ahead and hit this Let's Play button. And as students, you are going to be, and I'm not joined as a student, but it will tell you to either draw an example of the word or write a sentence with the word. One thing I do always tell my kids to do is if you're drawing an example of the word, don't put the word on there. Try to make it as visual as possible. As best as you can. And once you have submitted your work, it will drop down into this conveyor belt. It'll drop down into the conveyor belt. So I'll give y'all just a minute to work on some of those. So you can see some work came through here. And where it says next phase is quality control, when I click on that, I can actually give the flashcards a check mark, or I can give them an X. And I'll talk to you about some things that I've done with my students in the past to do some of that quality control. Okay, you may still be working, and I will say, if you interrupt a student who is doing a drawing, because they will get very into this and like put all the colors and all the things in their drawings, I do try to give them time cues, like I'm giving you 60 more seconds. That way, because you'll at every age group find that kids will like become perfectionist over their drawings and they want it to be wonderful and all of that. So just always give them time cues as well. But I'm going to go ahead and click this quality control, and it's going to stop the work. And so what's great about this is it breaks it down by the word. So I've got some here for the word beautiful. And I can see the two things. The writer of this group said a beach sunset, and then the drawer of this group did a red flower. And so I would usually have my students vote in class, like a quick raise of hands. What do you think about this one? Do we like it? Do we not like it? And so I could go ahead and give that check mark. I will say, if you're doing this in the classroom and you're worried about anything that might be inappropriate, this would be displayed on the projector. So you may want to not display it on the projector if you have any concerns about school appropriateness. But I could say, well, the last person that went already had a flower. And so my students might say, well, we don't need another one of a flower, so we're just going to give that one the X. And I kind of let them come up with their check mark or X mark criteria as a class. And so they would vote. So I could give that one an X and it would go away. And so I can keep going. I'm just going to kind of randomly give it a check mark and then give it an X. And at the very end, and you'll see it says it was only 2 out of 6 terms, and that's just because we didn't spend a ton of time on this. But you can see here, my orange team has 1 point and my blue team has 1 point. And of course, as you have more students and you actually spend more time on it, hopefully either the blue team or the orange team would win. Kids get really, really into that. And I really found that the first time I did this, I was pretty nervous just because I really wasn't sure how it would go. But my kids came in the very next day and said, can we do Pear Deck again? So they really got into it. And I'm talking, these were like 15, 16-year-olds, and they were begging to do this over and over and over again. So we really enjoyed it. And honestly, it was one of those activities that they just did not get tired of. They really liked it. So when you're done, all you have to do is click this 3 dots here and leave the factory. You can export your your vocabulary list and everything to Gimkit. I'm just gonna leave the factory for now. You can give it a name. So I'm gonna call this Collab in a Pandemic Session 4, save and leave factory. And so this will take me back to my vocabulary list. But I want to first show you how to access this. So now you've kind of experienced this as a student, what a student would see. And with something like that, I feel like is pretty important, just so you can kind of wrap your head around what that's going to be like for them. So in order to access Pear Deck Flashcard Factory, you would just go to peardeck.com and you'll want to make sure that you sign in. So I'm going to click Teacher Login, and I've already logged in previously, so I'm there, but you may have to, click your school account. And then right here where it says Pear Deck vocabulary, you could just go ahead and create a vocab list. And you've got several different options for how you might create this vocab list. I'm first going to just give it a title. Collab PD Session 4 is what I'll call that. So you can do all sorts of things. I think one of the words we looked at earlier was beautiful. So I can type this word in, And then I can just click the definitions here and it will populate definitions for me. And I will click that definition and I can add another term here if I want to. But if you can imagine, like, I think our vocabulary list at the 10th grade level used to be about, I think they were about 20 words. So it would take me a while if I wanted to add another term and add another term, because I usually had a list already of the words and the definitions. So you can actually import a list. And so you'll notice that on this list, there's not a way to insert like a Google Doc with a list or something like that. But it does give you instructions. Each line creates another card. Tabs separate terms and definitions. And so what I've done is I just created a document and I formatted this the way that I wanted it to be formatted on this screen. So I have typed in the word and tabbed and then put the definition. Typed the word, tab, put the definition. So all I'm going to do is select this text here and copy it. And then I'm going to come down here and paste. And you can see it populates all of those words and definitions for me. Now, if for some reason I mess up, so I'll show you argument, a reason for or against something. So when I come down here, it puts this whole argument, a reason for or against something, as all of it is the term. But I can easily come back up here and tab. And it might take it a second, but it brings that definition back down. So it's really easy to just copy and paste to import your list. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, import list. And you can see that these words all show up right here. And then when you're ready, you can just go ahead and play Flashcard Factory. But I know that as teachers, we're probably doing a lot of this work ahead of time. You're not like sitting there in class, typing in all the vocab words and definitions while your kids are running around or doing whatever, right? We're probably creating this work well in advance. So you may not want to just go ahead and play Flashcard Factory. And I'll show you how to access this and play this when you've created it ahead of time. But first I want to show you this share button. So I can click share. And in order to do this, I'm going to need to like publish it. So I'm going to just give a subject here. I'm going to go, let's see, where did it go? I think I'll go reading. Oh, there it is. And you can select multiple subjects as well. I can select a grade level. I don't remember which grade level I pulled these words from, but we'll go third. And you can select Common Core Standards as well. I'm going to make sure I agree and publish my lesson. And once I've done that, I can get a link here. So I've copied this link to my clipboard and I can go to my email and email it to my teammates or my PLC members. I can also, if I want to, I'm going to come to my drive and you will have a Pear Deck folder. Let me find it. Here it is, Pear Deck folder that's automatically created. And so you're not actually creating this folder, but when you make a vocab list, in my Pear Deck folder, I'm going to click vocabulary. And then you will see that the vocabulary list shows up here. So I've got this Collab PD session 4. So I'm going to double click on that and we can see the words here. And I'm going to exit out of these tabs so I can show you what this looks like. But you'll notice that it says open with Pear Deck up here. So all I have to do when I'm ready is click open with Pear Deck. And it's going to bring me to the screen that is that vocab editor, where I can add in words and all of that. And then from there, I would just click play Flashcard Factory. And we won't actually play this one. You've already done it, but it gives you those instructions. Make sure that this browser window is visible on your classroom's projector, or if you're virtual, make sure it's visible in Google Meet. So you'll want to make sure you're sharing that screen. And I'm going to say, okay, I see it on the projector, and it will give a code. So, and I'm going to go ahead and just leave this so we don't leave without naming. But that's how you would activate that flashcard factory from your drive. It's just go to your Pear Deck folder, click on vocabulary, and find that vocabulary list. It also helps if you give them really good titles. I clearly have untitled vocabulary list multiple times, so you definitely don't want to do that. You want to make sure they have titles so that you can easily find them. And I was also going to show you, let's see. I've got some resources here for you, just videos in case you need a quick reminder of how to share a list or how to run it. But I also created this nice to know tips for classroom use. And it just gives you some suggestions. So for example, you noticed that you were partnered with somebody. And so one person was doing the drawing and one person was doing the writing. If you're able to, in an in-person setting, I found that kids liked to be able to sit next to each other. But I know that that's not always possible when we're dealing with a global pandemic. And you may not be able to have your kids move all across the room and that sort of thing. But as you noticed, y'all aren't sitting next to your partners. Y'all are at your houses or in your classrooms or wherever you are, and you were still able to participate. So it's certainly not a requirement. It's just something that I found that my students liked, to be able to sit next to each other if they could. Have your Pear Deck dashboard accessible so that you can use that quality control. But remember that in the free version, you won't be able to have your dashboard like on a separate device. So it would be displayed on the projector or on your Google Meet if you share your screen. But you can always choose not to share your screen and not to have it displayed on the projector if you don't want to. And then another thing that I found with my students, because I'm sure that you know, when you do an activity one time, you learn what you want to do differently the next time. And so every time I did Flashcard Factory, I thought, the next time I do this, I'll do, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I put together just some success criteria for my students, and you can use and adapt these criteria where they're developmentally appropriate, like correct capitalization and punctuation may not be developmentally appropriate for a kindergartner. So just keep that in mind. Jamie, I don't think there is a self-paced mode. If there is, I haven't found it yet. So yeah, I don't think so. Because they're really working together and kind of, I guess, competing against each other. So, can definitions be put in without the main word? Oh, like where they would have to write the word on the flashcard? I don't know. I've never tried that. I don't know. Let me see if I can. I'll add a term. This is my definition. It turns my box red. So I'm thinking probably not. I wonder if I click. Yep. It says you're missing terms. Some of your cards are missing terms. Would you like to continue without updating? Start game anyway. I don't know what that would look like on the student view though. Because if it said draw an example of this word and there was no word, then I don't know. I don't know what that would look like on the student view. I'll have to play around with that one and kind of see what that looks like.
So I wonder if you could just put in like number 1 and it would recognize that as text.
It probably would.
The vocabulary word normally is.
Yeah, it probably would. We could play around with that and kind of see how that works, because I have not thought about that use of it.
I just think that it would be a good way to put in like tie in vocabulary and spelling at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I love that idea. And so these are just some success criteria that I came up with. My kids found it fun to, like, if they were partnered with each other, to try to get the picture to match the sentence of, and sometimes I did that just to challenge them, but other times I just felt like I wanted them practicing their vocabulary. So it really kind of depended where we were with the vocab. I taught high school, so in almost everything we did, always reminded students it needs to be school appropriate. You may not have that issue depending on your grade level or your group of students, but these were just some things that I found useful in giving students success criteria for the flashcards. But you could obviously change them, adapt them to whatever best fits your needs in your classroom as well. And then, so that is Pear Deck Flashcard Factory, and it is free, or it's available in the free version of Pear Deck. So I have really enjoyed it. My students really enjoyed it, and it was one of those that they just never really got tired of, and they always got excited about it. So I really have enjoyed that. Tonight's digital dessert is Kahoot, and specifically the Kahoot team mode, because we're focused really on collaboration. So this is one that educators have used for a while. But if you haven't used Kahoot, or you're not familiar with it, or maybe you just haven't used it in a long time, I've got some videos here just how to access Kahoot, creating the activity, the Kahoot library. But this is a really great way to engage your students in a similar way to Flashcard Factory. It's a game and they're kind of competing. So just a good way to engage your kids in content, not just vocab, but it could be math, or it could be, really any subject you could use this for. And then on this slide, I thought that the educator groups, which is a fairly new-ish feature of Kahoot, I found that would be really helpful to not just, I know we're talking really about students collaborating, but a great way to collaborate with your colleagues as well. So the educator groups I thought was really great. And then I've got some information here on Kahoot team mode as well. Okay. I'm not going to stop sharing my screen. Dr. White, I think you are up next. Unless, yeah.
Yes, you're great. So I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to ask any questions. You all have been kind of quiet tonight. So I don't know if it's just part of Thursday afternoon of 4 days that if you're in person, you've actually had your kiddos in person, or what it is. But everybody's a little more quiet than usual, but I do want to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask any questions. I know Jamie was asking a few that we'll have to play with after hours, or after this time, just to kind of see what it'll do. That's an interesting aspect or way to use Pear Deck. So that'll be fun to figure out. We do ask that everybody fill out the bit.ly that we've got listed here. That just helps us to know how we can improve, but it's also record of your attendance so that you can get PD credit if you need that PD credit this year. So I'm going to be quiet for the next minute or so and let you all ask questions. Okay, I don't even think I heard crickets then. Lauren, Rosalind, did you all have anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I'm just excited that y'all were here and able to join. And if you have any questions or think of something later that you want some support with, I know Lauren and I would both love to help you.
Okay. And I see where Rosalind put the bit.ly in the chat so that you're not trying to just look at the screen and get that typed in. So just think about CIAP, collaboration in a pandemic, and then 21 if you're having trouble with that bit.ly for whatever reason. Okay. Well, we don't want to belabor it, but we'll stay on for a few minutes in case somebody has any questions. And thanks for attending, and just let us know if we can support you in any way.
Hey, I just wanted to say that this was just super awesome. This is my first year teaching, and I actually started in October. So this has been just amazing, and you guys have saved me so much time trying to learn all these different things on my own. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Great feedback. Thank you so much.